Welcome to Worst Case Scenario 10. Today, we're diving into a story that's not just a headline. It's a nightmare etched into the history of South Korea, a disaster that shows no mercy, spares no one, and rewrites the rules of survival. This is the worst forest fire South Korea has ever faced. A relentless force of nature that turned a peaceful spring day into a fiery hell. Picture this. March 21st, 2025, in the southeastern region of South Korea, near Andong City in North Gyeongsang Province. The air is dry, the winds are strong, and the landscape is a tinderbox waiting for a spark. People are going about their day. Some are sweeping tombs, others are clearing weeds around ancestors' graves, small but meaningful traditions. No one could have imagined that these routine acts of care would ignite a catastrophe that would scar the nation for years to come. The fire erupts. It all started on a seemingly ordinary afternoon near Andong City. At 11:28 a.m., a black car was captured on surveillance cameras driving up a mountain path in Wheseong County, a rural area known for its dense pine forests and historical sites. Two individuals, later identified as locals in their 50s, were burning weeds to clean a family grave, a common practice during the spring season. But the conditions were far from forgiving. The region had seen unusually warm temperatures that spring, drying out the landscape, and the winds were gusting at speeds of up to 15 meters per second. A small spark from their fire caught the dry grass, and within 40 minutes, flames erupted with a ferocity that no one could have predicted. At the scene, investigators later found a lighter and a liquor bottle cap, chilling evidence of carelessness that would cost lives, homes, and irreplaceable heritage. What began as a small flame quickly spiraled into an uncontrollable monster. The mountainous terrain, combined with the dry conditions and strong winds, created a perfect storm for disaster. The fire spread at an unimaginable speed, fueled by the resin-rich pine forests that dominate North Gyeongsang Province. Pine trees, while beautiful and vital to the ecosystem, are highly flammable due to their resin content, which acts like oil, intensifying the blaze. The fire leapt from treetop to treetop, creating crown fires that roared through the canopy, sending embers flying up to 2 kilometers away. A phenomenon known as fire spotting. Within hours, the sky over Andong turned a terrifying orange, thick with smoke and ash. The ancient Gunsa Temple, a 1,300-year-old Buddhist sanctuary built in 681 AD during the Silla dynasty, stood no chance. The wooden structures, despite their historical significance, were reduced to ashes in mere minutes. The presiding monk at Beopseongsa Temple in Yongyang perished in the flames, a tragic loss that shook the nation to its core. The fire didn't stop there. It spread to nearby areas, including Cheongsang, Yongyang, and Yeongdeok, consuming everything in its path. By the evening of March 22nd, the blaze had already charred over 1,200 acres in Wheseong County alone, and it showed no signs of slowing down. The air quality in Andong City deteriorated to catastrophic levels, with PM 2.5 particulate matter reaching 557 micrograms per cubic meter, 7 times the threshold for extremely poor air quality. Residents choked on the toxic smoke as darkness and ash blanketed the region. More than 37,000 people were forced to evacuate, many fleeing with nothing but the clothes on their backs. The historic Ha-ho Folk Village, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Andong, came under threat, its traditional hanok houses with thatched roofs standing as vulnerable targets against the advancing flames. Desperate struggle. The response to the crisis was immediate but overwhelmed by the scale of the disaster. Over 6,700 firefighters, supported by 110 helicopters and thousands of military personnel, were deployed to battle the Inferno. The Korea Forest Service issued its highest-level severe fire warning for 12 locations, including North Gyeongsang Province, as the fire spread to central Chungcheong Province and southwestern Jeolla Province. In Andong, firefighters used a large fire cannon to protect Ha-ho Village, supported by 14 firefighting vehicles and 98 personnel. But the mountainous topography, combined with the relentless winds, made containment nearly impossible. At one point, firefighters achieved 70% containment of the largest blaze in Gyeongsang, only for the winds to reignite the flames, reducing containment to just 35%. Tragedy struck the firefighting efforts as well. On March 26th, an S-76 firefighting helicopter crashed in Gyeongsang while attempting to drop water on the blaze, killing the 73-year-old pilot. The helicopter, later found to have a 30-year-old airframe, was one of many aging aircraft pressed into service during the crisis. The crash forced a temporary grounding of all firefighting helicopters, further hampering efforts to contain the fire. By March 27th, the death toll had risen to 28, including 3 firefighters and 1 government employee. Among the victims were elderly residents, many in their 60s and 70s, who struggled to evacuate due to mobility issues. In Yongdeok County, 3 residents of an elderly care facility perished when their car caught fire during an evacuation attempt. The fire's destruction was staggering. Over 45,000 hectares, 111,000 acres of forest were charred, making this the largest single forest fire in South Korea's history, surpassing the previous record of 24,000 hectares set in 2000. More than 3,481 structures were destroyed, including homes, temples, and factories. In Andong, the tap water supply in high-altitude areas like Imha, Namhu, and Gilan was cut off due to a power outage at the pressurized water supply facility caused by the fire. Telecommunications were disrupted, and highways and train services were suspended, leaving residents stranded and isolated. The South Korean government, led by acting President Han Duck-soo, declared North and South Gyeongsang Provinces and Ulsan as disaster zones, unlocking emergency resources and support. Han, who had been reinstated as acting president just days before, visited Andong on March 28th to meet with disaster officials and victims. He ordered local governments to mobilize all available resources to ensure residents' safety and announced a crackdown on illegal incineration practices. The government pledged 2.6 billion won, $177.4 million, in disaster relief funds, with an additional 50 million won allocated for residents of Sancheong County. Over 25% of affiliated government officials and 50% of local public service personnel were deployed to standby positions in the affected areas. Consequences and wounds. The aftermath of the fire left South Korea in a state of mourning. The loss of life was heartbreaking. 28 dead, including firefighters who gave their lives to protect others. The destruction of cultural heritage was equally devastating. In addition to Gunsa Temple, 30 heritage sites were damaged, including the Chiljeoknyong Pass on Baegunsan, a 900-year-old ginkgo tree in Hadong, and the Joseon-era Mansai Pavilion in Cheongsong. The Yakye Pavilion in Andong and the Gigok Jesa Ritual House in Cheongsong were also reduced to rubble. For a nation that prides itself on its rich history, these losses were a profound blow to its cultural identity. The economic toll was immense. In Cheorwan County, 2 of the 3 buildings of the Cheorwan mushroom farm burned down, devastating local livelihoods. Farmers like 72-year-old Choi Jung-chan, who lost his home and farm in Gyeongsang, were left with nothing. After 10, 20, 50 years of collecting things, the fire has burned it all down, he said, his voice heavy with despair. The fires displaced over 37,000 people, many of whom were elderly, a demographic particularly vulnerable in rural South Korea, where 1 in 5 people is over 60-65. The emotional scars ran deep. Families lost homes, communities lost their sense of safety, and the nation lost pieces of its history that can never be replaced. Amid the despair, international support provided a glimmer of hope. The U.S. military, stationed in South Korea, deployed 4 helicopters, including Blackhawks and Chinooks, to assist with firefighting efforts in Sancheong and other areas. The U.S. State Department offered condolences and pledged further support, noting South Korea's history of aiding the U.S. during wildfires in Los Angeles and Hawaii. This global solidarity helped South Korea finally bring the fires under control by March 28th, when rain and better weather allowed helicopters to douse the remaining flames. The main blazes were contained, but the damage was done. Lessons learned. As the smoke clears and South Korea begins to rebuild, the haunting question lingers. Could this disaster have been prevented? The answer is a resounding yes. The fire's origins trace back to a small act of carelessness. Two individuals burning weeds without proper precautions. Local villagers in Gosan-won-ri, led by village chief Kim Jung-ho, identified the culprits as they attempted to flee down the mountain. Kim recorded their car's license plate and detained them until police arrived. Authorities are now finalizing charges, but the damage they caused is irreversible. This tragedy underscores a critical lesson. Big disasters often start with small mistakes. The dry conditions, strong winds, and flammable pine forests created a perfect storm, but it was human error that lit the match. South Korea's disaster chief Lee Han-kyung pointed to the harsh reality of the climate crisis, noting that unusually warm temperatures and reduced rainfall, only half the seasonal average, had primed the landscape for disaster. The country had already seen 244 wildfires in 2025, 2.4 times more than the same period the previous year. A stark reminder of the growing threat posed by climate change. For individuals, the lesson is clear. When handling fire, especially in dry or windy conditions, caution is non-negotiable. Always carry a small fire extinguisher, ensure fires are completely extinguished before leaving, and never light fires during high-risk weather. Stay alert, follow local fire warnings, and remind those around you of these essential safety rules. For communities, the disaster highlights the need for better infrastructure. More accessible fire engines in mountainous areas, stricter regulations on burning practices, and public education campaigns about fire safety. For the government, it's a call to invest in modern firefighting equipment, like newer helicopters, and to address the root causes of climate change that exacerbate these disasters. The wounds of 2025 remain: charred forests, new homes rising from the ashes, and a nation forever changed. But if we learn from this tragedy, we can prevent history from repeating itself. Share this story with your friends and family. Let it be a reminder of the power of a single spark and the importance of vigilance. Tell me, if you were faced with a situation like this, what would your first move be? Would you know how to protect yourself and your loved ones? Worst case scenario X. See you next time. Stay sharp. The flames are always lurking, my friend.